Find the equation of the line with slope 4/5 passing through 3, -6. So this is another example on finding the equation of the line given the slope passing through a certain point. Now, keep in mind every time a problem is asking you to find the equation of a line with a given slope passing through a certain point, we want to make sure or ask ourselves whether or not that point is the y-intercept. And if we look at this point, 3, -6, that's another way to say x equals 3 and y equals -6. So that would imply that our particular point is not the y-intercept. And I'll just label that really quick to keep this in mind. So when it's not the y-intercept, that means we cannot just plug in directly for b when we're looking at our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we'll keep that in mind as we move along the problem. So if our slope is 4/5, we can at least fill in what we know. So y equals 4/5 x plus b. And we keep in mind what's the information that's given to us when a line passes through a certain point. Remember, when a line passes through a certain point, it's actually giving you the solutions to the equation. X equals 3 and y equals -6 will satisfy the linear equation. So the next thing you'd like to do is actually plug in. Plug in x equals 3 where you see x, y equals -6 where you see y. This will leave us with an equation that only has one variable, b, which is what we want to determine. So we're going to want to simplify the right side and see if we can solve for b. So if I simplify the right side, we'll notice that we want to multiply by 3, we have to put the whole number over 1. And I don't see any possibilities of cross-canceling or having the denominator divide out. So what I have to do is just deal with it as a fraction. So when we deal with it as a fraction, it usually ends up being a numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. So that should leave us with 12 over 5 plus b. So if our goal is to solve for b, we have to look at what type of equation we have. You'll notice that we have the equation with a fraction, and this is kind of different than some of the previous examples that we've been dealing with. So when your equation has a fraction, remember one of the strategies you can use is to multiply both sides by the LCD, which in our case is 5. So I'll multiply the left side by a 5 and the right side by 5. Now, the left side's not a big deal because we know 5 times -6 will give us -30. But we have to be a little more careful on the right side. We'll notice that 5 is multiplied to 2 terms. So we actually have to distribute the 5 in for both of these terms so we don't miss them. So I'll rewrite that, multiplying 5 times 12/5 and 5 times b. Now looking at the right-hand side of our equation, it's clear we're going to have to simplify before we can start moving terms from one side to the other. So I'm going to look at this multiplication of 5 times 12 fifths. Remember that we can put the whole number 5 over 1. And this will allow us to cross cancel. 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 5 once. So we would be left over with negative 30 equals 12 plus 5b. So if I want to solve for b, I need to isolate the b term first. So that would involve subtracting 12 from both sides to give us 5b. And negative 30 minus 12 is equal to negative 42. Finally, to solve for b, we will divide both sides by 5. And we'll look at it that really, negative 42 over 5, it really has no common factors other than 1 between the two, 42 and 5. And at this point, we're just kind of stuck with taking that as our y-intercept. So we have b equals negative 42 over 5. If you care to, you could turn it into a mixed number, but we remember that the problem was asking for finding the equation of the line. I might turn negative 42 over 5 into a mixed number if I was forced to graph the equation. That could be an issue. So let's finish off the problem. Remember the equation of the line. Remember, we go back to y equals mx plus b. Remembering to finish off the problem, we have to substitute the appropriate value for m and the appropriate value for b into this equation. So finally, we'll get y equals, I believe the slope was 4/5 x plus, and b was actually negative 42 over 5. And we've run into this situation earlier where whenever you have plus a negative, it's better to rewrite it as minus so that the problem is simplified. So our final answer will be y equals 4/5 x minus 42 over 5. And that is the equation of the line with slope 4/5 passing through the point 3, negative 6.